Hello there, my name's Jack, the snack that smiles back. Welcome to Mick. Today's video is all about asking, who is the a-hole? Are they a-holes? Are they not? Does everyone just suck? Only one way to find out. Now remember, if you enjoyed today's content or have a blast, like the video so you can help out the channel. But let's not dilly-dally any longer. It's time to sit back, relax, grab your favorite cup of tea and your best Spotify background music playlist, and let's get started with the stories. Our first story. Am I the a-hole for losing myself when my parents decided to get a dog after I moved out? I've always wanted a dog. From when I was 9 to when I was 16, I asked for a dog every birthday and Christmas. But I was always shut down, saying it was not possible. I just stopped asking after that. I'm 10 years older than my younger siblings. I moved out a month ago to my own place after I graduated college and got a job. I excitedly told my parents how now I can finally get the dog I wanted, and I had an appointment with the shelter next week. Then my mum goes, "Looks like your new puppy is going to have a sister." I literally freaked out a little, thinking my mother was having another kid. Instead, I found out that they'd reserved a puppy with a breeder and were coming to pick her up in a month. When I tell you I lost myself, I mean it. I went full exorcist and was screaming at them like a mad woman. Like every resentment I had just erupted, and I called them some really mean stuff. My parents and I were in tears by the end of it. I've refused to talk to them since. Yesterday, I got a text from my 13-year-old sibling calling me a B because my parents were cancelling the puppy reservation. I then sent them a message in the family WhatsApp group saying that if their goal was to completely exclude me from the family, then congratulations, they've succeeded. I then left the group and blocked my parents. My dad knocked on my door last night begging me to forgive them and to please give them a chance to talk. I refused to let him in. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna say yes. Absolutely, you are the a-hole. Considering this is an issue about what happened just now, yes, you are the a-hole. I mean, I understand there's probably some backstory between you and your parents, that being a 10-year age difference between having kids, and maybe you had terrible parents. But the way you acted, just from hearing they got a puppy, it's so unnecessary. Now, I'm not saying exactly that your feelings are invalid. Of course, your feelings are valid if you felt you were kind of betrayed by your parents in the way that they refused to get you a puppy for years, and now, after you finally left, they suddenly get one? Yeah, sure, that would suck, and I would absolutely let my parents know that. But I would not rant at them to the verge of tears. I'm calling you the a-hole in this one, based purely on how you responded to the whole situation, really. After all, when you received word from your sibling that they had cancelled the puppy reservation, your intake of that was that they were trying to villainize you from the family. Which isn't true at all, simply by the fact alone that your father came all the way to your house just to try and get your forgiveness. Clearly, this is an issue that you kinda need to take on with a therapist, I think, as how you reacted was way off the necessary scale. Again, this is kind of based off the idea that your parents aren't complete a-holes themselves and weren't really dismissive of your needs as a kid. But considering it wasn't until another 10 years that they decided to have another kid, I'm going to be suspicious of the fact that maybe they simply couldn't afford the responsibility nor the finances to actually have a pet. And now that you've moved out, hey look, all these expenses we've normally paid to our child can now be used to get a pet maybe. So yeah, I think you're the a-hole. But anyway, let's look at the comments because I'm quite certain there's going to be a few mixed opinions. Everyone sucks here. It sounds like the dog was sort of a final straw in a lifetime of being treated differently than your siblings. You were right to call them out, but maybe not in the extreme fashion you did. The cancellation of the deposit with the breeder shows at least some self-awareness that there was some truth in the things that you said. It's okay to be mad and to need space. You may want to address the larger issues at play, but in your own time. OP responded, "Honestly, this has been building for a time. I was clearly unplanned, and my parents didn't know what they were doing." Well, that would explain the 10-year age difference. And, well, a lot of things, actually, in regards to how you felt your parents were treating you. I'm resentful that they're better parents to my siblings. You're right. I think I need space from them for some time. Yes, have that self-awareness. Have that reflection. You are a good person. I don't think you're that much of an a-hole anymore. You have every right to feel some resentment if you have been treated differently all your life. But don't take it out on your siblings. It's not their fault. If they end up not getting a dog now, it will unlikely have much impact on your life, but it will punish your siblings for simply being born 10 years later than you when your parents had matured. Came here to say this. OP, your feelings are valid, and no one here can know what you've gone through. But since you're older and your siblings are that much younger, it sounds like your parents were really young and made some mistakes. The cancelling of the deposit and your dad coming to your door seem like a self-aware olive branch, and it's up to you to hear them out or take a step back. Now, Solo954 here brings up an interesting point that I feel a lot of us aren't really taking into account. People who come from loving families are often incapable of understanding how toxic some parents can be, and they misattribute good intentions where there are none. None of us on Reddit have all the facts, but there is zero evidence in OP's posts that the parents tried their best. That's an assumption you have made entirely based on your own experience. This comment is exactly what I was thinking. The parents had OP young and made mistakes. Now that they learn from that and have younger children, they are trying to get better at it. They also now have extra income because they aren't supporting OP living at home or going to school, so they could have the extra finances to get a dog, whereas before, they maybe couldn't. It's understandable that OP is upset, but to this extent, come on. The father even drove to OP's house to try and work things out in person. Sounds like OP has a lot of growing up to do. Okay, well, take all the points I made, why don't you? But what do you think? Feel free to comment down below and let me know if there's anything maybe I've missed with this story. Our next exciting tale? Am I the a-hole for avoiding my family because my aunt is trash? This will be long. Bear with me. It started when my father's health deteriorated last summer. He slept around 20 hours a day, stopped eating, and basically stopped communicating completely. We were extremely worried. We called a doctor, and he said it was a stomach bug, which made him dehydrated and caused the symptoms. I need to add that my aunt, his sister, is a homeopath, you know, with crystals and pendulums. She comes over and uses her pendulum on him to see what is wrong. We don't really believe in her craft, but we let her have her fun. She tells us that her pendulum said my dad really had a stomach bug. He's pooping and throwing up. Of course he's weak. Not everything is as dramatic as you make it out to be. He definitely doesn't have cancer. The pendulum would have reacted differently. That was strike one. We were worried about cancer, since he had it before. Lo and behold, a week later we have a first diagnosis. Brain tumor, the size of a baseball. In comes his sister, urging him he shouldn't let them, by that she meant me, my mother, and the doctors, poison him. That he shouldn't get chemo, no matter what. He hadn't even been fully diagnosed yet, and she already told him to deny treatment. That was strike two. Long story short, we found out it's a fatal tumor. He gets the surgery, is sent to hospice, and dies 5 weeks later. Then, we are trying to get things in order afterwards. In comes, of course, my aunt. It's 3 months since my dad died, and she asks us if we can verify that my dad paid her share of the inheritance. Their mother died in 2007, and he was obligated to pay his siblings 12,500 euros each within 3 months. That was back in 2007, and 12 years later, 3 months after her brother died, she shows up, says that she doesn't remember ever getting that money, and she expects to receive that money from us. She cornered my mum to tell her this. Strike three. We're in the process of investigating. It definitely was paid, we just need the proof. When she sends a handwritten letter in which she is trying to tell us that she deserves the money, and also implies that my dad had been in debt in the 70s from gambling, and that their parents had paid $20,000 to cover, is that the right verb, his debt. I was understandably furious, especially since their parents helping him out financially almost 50 years ago is beyond irrelevant, and it only dug up dirt that was no one's business. I then decided that I didn't want anything to do with her after all of this happened and chose not to attend any family gatherings anymore. I know, I would snap at her if I was in the same room with her, making a scene that would ruin whatever occasion it was. Now, members of my family are telling me I'm being dramatic by not attending events and that I'm being ridiculous. TLDR, my aunt was a B-word during my father's cancer battle and tried to use his death to get us to pay a bogus debt. Now, I cut ties with the whole family and they think I'm being a drama queen. Am I the a-hole? You are so clearly the non-a-hole here. Made you think. But seriously, I don't see how the heck you are an a-hole for not wanting to be in contact with this woman after what she's put you through. Your father died. Her brother died. And here she is trying to get some money off of you guys? Also kind of weird and shady of her to bring up your father's past as a way to justify why she should get the money from you guys ASAP and why she is right to believe she hasn't got the money yet. I mean, if anything, I feel like that just proves why he would have already paid her, because he's experienced being in a lot of debt before and owing people money, and would probably want to avoid being in that situation again. The fact the rest of your family is trying to just brush it off, though, I feel is a bit rude of them. The fact your aunt hasn't even come up to really apologize about the way she approached and all this, I feel that's also another red flag, and further justifies why you shouldn't have to waste your time around her. However, I do have to ponder how exactly, let's just assume for a second, that she is right, that she never actually got the pay. How exactly would one approach their family about this? She procrastinated bringing it up for so long, and now all of a sudden her brother's got terminal cancer. Would be rather rude to talk about it while he's dying. Would also be very rude to talk about it after he's passed. So how long do you wait exactly to bring up your missing inheritance? And based on your descriptions of the aunt, I'd assume that you don't exactly have the strongest and tightest relationship with her. So it could be possible that her cornering your mother was just her trying to strengthen her chances of someone understanding what she's inquiring about. And again, the handwritten letter, that could have just been her attempt to try and be a bit more formal about it, as well as avoiding talking about it face to face because she's afraid of how much you'll snap at her for trying to just bring up a point as to why she feels justified in believing that she's owed money. Now, this isn't me saying it's completely fine the way she was behaving during the whole ordeal, but it's just something I think you kind of need to think about as well. Seriously, how would you approach someone about this? Hey bro, I know you're dying, but you owe me the 12 grand still. You haven't sent that through yet. You know, that thing? Yeah. Anyway, let's look at the comments. Not the a-hole. Sounds like she's just trying to use his death as a chance to get money off of him. Lying about the crystals and whatever was also trashy, considering how sick he was. Not the a-hole. You already made up your mind here. Why bother asking us? Because my family are telling me that I'm being selfish by avoiding the whole family when only she is the problem. They are telling me to be the bigger person and come to family events anyway, because I don't have to interact with her. I thought I was right by not going, that avoiding drama was the right thing, but now I'm not so sure anymore. They are also using my mental health as an argument, saying that I'm not seeing things clearly because of it, I'm bipolar, and that I'm overreacting. I just don't know what to think at this point. Okay, ooh, that's a red flag. Now, it's one thing for people, especially family and friends, to point out your opinion on something may be possibly flawed or influenced due to your mental health, if that has happened in the past, like definitely happened in the past. I'm talking having almost a meltdown over something that wasn't a big deal at all due to your mental health issues, like that degree. But in this scenario, no, no way at all. Now, I'm rather basic in my knowledge of mental health and psychology to that degree, but I'm pretty sure bipolarism doesn't necessarily affect your ability to make decisions and understanding of people. Like, sure, it can influence the way you react to things, but not what you think of things. So I would disagree completely with them trying to use your mental health as an argument towards your decision making. It affects your emotion. It gives you highs and lows. It's such a dumb argument. Anyway, moving on. I tried posting before with more context, but the character limit was making me censor myself a bit. Not the a-hole at all. Your TLDR summed it up perfectly. She tried to use your father's painful, tragic death as a way to try to manipulate your mother into giving her all that money. Forget that. She's a terrible person, and I find it shocking that the rest of your family not only lets her get away with this BS, but turns it around into you being the one in the wrong. Insanity. The thing is, the people being the loudest about me overreacting are my brother and his wife, who have talked to my mother into going to family events again. I just can't seem to get myself to do that. Everyone in my family seems to be willing to just be silent about all of it and act like nothing happened, and I just can't get myself to do that. I'm too hurt and angry, and I can't guarantee that I won't rip her head off when I see her. My family is not seeing it the same way, which makes me think I might actually be overreacting. Well, if you plan to rip her head off, then yeah, sure, okay, that's a bit of an overreaction, but to not want to see her again? No. You're allowed to feel that way. Of course, there's always the maturity in understanding and accepting forgiveness. But of course, that is dependent on whether or not the other person is willing to give you that as well. Not the a-hole for wanting to avoid anything where your aunt is, at least while you feel that it would result in a very negative experience. She sounds like a nasty opportunist. I had a similar, but X gave Y to Z years ago situation in my family after my grandparents died. It was nasty and resulted in years of lawyers. It may come to that for you, or not, but dealing with someone like this without a lawyer involved when it comes to estate stuff may be trouble down the road when it comes to having to prove what is being said and done right now. Don't hold too much hate for her first diagnosis. That stuff should always be taken with a grain of salt. My mother was into that kind of stuff, but she wouldn't have tried to make a medical diagnosis. Even as someone who believed in that kind of stuff, she still only believed that it was a form of semi-accurate intuition, and that it was not infallible, and you shouldn't bank your life on it. She never would have advised anyone to ignore the advice or instructions of a medical professional. That's a bridge too far, and I get why you would not be able to get over it. Ooh, nice pun. That's beyond being an a-hole. Your aunt is an a-hole for both the terrible advice, whether you followed it or not, and for chasing after money that it seems, and she knows, she is not entitled to. I'm sorry for your loss, and for a time of already complicated feelings being muddled by this. Try not to let it get in between you and the better members of your family, though. Yes, I have to agree with that final point. There's a lot of people in your family who probably love having you around and want to see you, and for you to completely isolate yourself from everyone in the family, I feel that just makes them feel like they've done something wrong as well, when they haven't. Aside from those who were making that terrible argument about the mental health stuff. But even then, I think the best process to overcome that argument is just to accept that they're going off a base of ignorance towards the whole thing, rather than actually them being complete a-holes in what they think of people with mental health. Anyway, that's the end of that story. Let's get on to the next one. It's got to do with a 13-year-old going a bit, questionable in his actions. Am I the a-hole for cutting the fricking Wi-Fi cable so my friends can stop playing video games? Hi lads, so I got y'all an interesting story from my 13th birthday, not long ago since I'm still 13, that got me questioning my relations with people. This all happened pre my Sharona, by the way. So, back in my B-day, I invited the boys, my close circle of friends, over to chill at my house, piece out a cake, the usual. I learned how to drive so I could pick up my friends by myself, and since I'm 6 foot, I was mistaken by an 18-year-old with a baby face. Some friends got to my house, but others asked for permission last minute. You know, those friends, right? So I went and picked them up. This is where it gets spicy. So while I was gone, some other friends came too. Y'all know the first thing they did when they got at my house? They went in my room, found the controllers for my PlayStation, turned it on, logged in me and my brother's account, and started playing Fortnite. All while I was gone. And they also changed my freaking sensitivity, which I'd adjusted to the perfect sensitivity for me. You know, I still haven't been able to find that sensitivity yet, months after the incident. And when I got home, they were chilling in there, like as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Fast forward a few hours later, of them playing, of course, it's time to cut the cake. They were dragged out of my room to blow the candles, and as soon as they ate their cake, in they went to the PS4. I asked them several times to watch a movie, and they said no. Oh, did I mention they were wrestling on my bed with their shoes on? Then I said, frick it. The boys are too stick to the PS4, and I cut the Wi-Fi cables in half. We got in an argument, and they ended up leaving early. What should I do now? Should I say sorry for going so berserk, or should I stand my ground and let them figure it out? Am I the a-hole? Okay, there's some things here that don't make you an a-hole, but what you've done as a result of what they were doing makes you the a-hole. We'll talk about those things first, and then mention some other things that I think you need to be aware of, or at least see someone about. Now, yes, the way they were behaving was absolutely selfish, and if anything, I feel like you should have just turned off the PS4 and said, if you guys want to play PS4, you can do that next weekend, maybe when it's not my birthday. But it's my birthday, so we're gonna do what I want, and you guys are gonna respect that. Oh, I can only imagine how respectfully your fellow 13-year-old teen friends would have reacted to you doing that. So yeah, I'm gonna say that the way they were treating you, they the a-holes, you not. But your decision to cut the Wi-Fi cables? Okay, buddy, assuming you're going to be paying and reinstalling them, or at least paying for the person who has to reinstall them, you are the a-hole. It's one thing to take a rather petty measure against your friends for them disrespecting you, but it's another to literally damage property that your parents are probably going to have to pay for. Now, I'm sure it's probably only a few dollars for the cable you cut in half, but regardless, that's still a pain of a thing to do. Hence why I think you should have just simply grabbed the PS4 yourself or unplugged it and just brought up that issue and let them know, hey guys, I'm feeling completely ignored here on my birthday. What the hell's going on? Now what really strikes me here though is the way you're talking about the sensitivity on your controller. Like, I understand, as a bit of a gamer myself, how frustrating it can be when you're playing those rather competitive games and someone messes with the system you've got in place to maximize your chances at winning. And you're 13. You're not dealing with bills and mortgages and a full-time job yet, all those kind of things that really make you realize how unnecessary it is to worry so much about things like game sensitivity. But reading that, the way you've typed it, and as well as the actions you took to get your friends to notice you, I do think you may have snapped a bit more aggressively than you needed to. And I think that's something you need to look into. Maybe you don't need to go see a therapist completely about it, but at least just read up about it and maybe check in what things are really causing you to get so easily stressed out like this. Again, I don't want to imply that you're crazy or that you're an insane, crazy, mad person, because you're 13. You're still developing, especially mentally and psychologically. And sometimes you're gonna come across things that trigger you to a sense of rage. And especially as a young kid, it's okay to want to let that rage out. But of course, if that rage results in you damaging things, be it objects or people, that's when you're going too far. And the fact you are willing to do this is exactly why I think you need to take a step back and just be aware that you have the ability and sometimes the urge to take it a bit too far. Anyway, let's look at what some people said. Not the a-hole, it's your PS4, but there are honestly better ways to disconnect PS4 from the Wi-Fi network without them knowing. Everyone sucks here. It was wrong of them to just invite themselves into your room to play video games, but there are much better ways of shutting off the Wi-Fi that don't involve ruining a set of perfectly good cables. You should have asked someone else to do it for you if that was the only way you knew how to shut it off. Everyone sucks here because, yes, your friends shouldn't use your stuff without your permission, etc. But you're 13? Why are you driving? Couldn't you unplug the Wi-Fi? What was your parents' response? And again, for the hell of it, where are your parents in this? Everyone sucks here. Sorry, just to clarify, but you're 13? How are you able to drive if you live in the US? Yeah, your friends are a-holes. They were really rude. But also, you completely overreacted. Cutting the Wi-Fi cables? Really? Your parents or guardians pay for those, not you. And you could have easily just turned off the Wi-Fi, or heck, just asked them to leave. So, yeah, you're kind of an a-hole too, and may need some anger management classes because, dang, that's pretty extreme for a 13-year-old especially. Now, I have to challenge this whole question of the 13-year-old driving thing. I'm assuming this guy probably lives on some rural property area, and it's very common out there for people as young as 12 and 8 years old to learn how to drive their parents' cars, simply just for the simplicity of it. Now, regardless, by the sounds of it, this guy was driving outside his private property, which I definitely won't condone, but I don't know, I guess in my own upbringing I'm used to the idea of people as young as 7 learning and casually driving cars around the place. Mainly on large properties, I don't want to out any mates of mine. Our next story, am I the a-hole for leaving during my wife's labor? Well, okay, I feel like this is just too obvious of an a-hole, but yeah, let's see. My wife went into labor around 6 p.m. on Sunday. We were expecting twins. It quickly turns into a very painful process. She kept cutting off the blood pressure to my hand when she squeezed and nearly sprayed my shirt with vomit. Around 3 a.m., my dad calls. I worked for my dad's company, and we had a presentation for clients Monday morning that I had to get ready for. My dad heard my wife was in labor, but told me he needed me on this presentation. He said there was nothing I could do to help my wife, and delivery and seeing the baby come out was overrated, and people don't prepare you for the gore. He said he needed me to rest up and make myself presentable for the presentation. My wife's labor was progressing very slowly, and we were all certain she would need forceps or other assistance to deliver the babies. I realized that I couldn't help her here, and my dad was counting on me, so I told her I needed to leave. She started screaming at me so loudly that a few nurses rushed over to our room. I ended up doing the presentation with the clients, and things went well. I leave the office and see a text on my phone that said my wife delivered an hour ago at around 10:30 a.m. and they had to use forceps. I would have missed the meeting had I stayed, and my dad has given me everything he could possibly give me in life, so I didn't want to let him down. Am I the a-hole? I had responsibilities I had to take care of, and while my wife is still screaming at me saying that she was alone when they destroyed her body, I'm the only one who works, and her mum herself said that she was emotional and overreacting. My wife even went as far to say that her family would disown her if she was the first of them to divorce, but that she doesn't consider me her husband right now. So is he the a-hole? Well, I was expecting some sort of twist maybe, but no. No, he's the a-hole. But let's digest some of this for a bit. By the way his father spoke to him about the whole pregnancy, it seems like he put a bit of pressure on his son, especially growing up, to really look up to his dad and do what he says. He knows best after all. His dad would have more experience with having a child compared to him, and is likely the figure he trusts as guidance when it comes to knowledge about things. So I'm not surprised that he's rather influenced by his father's opinion to just leave the pregnancy, especially promising the fact that gore was on schedule. I'm sorry to say, but me as a guy, I would definitely not be too keen on that. But how he justifies him leaving is really what points out the flaw in his own mindset, as well as their relationship. I mean, his dad counting on him, the fact he had responsibilities with his dad and work and being the only one who works for his family, all that kind of stuff. Buddy, you also have a responsibility with your wife. And she is going through something that some people can die from. Like, you are seeing her literally go through hell. She is vomiting, she is crying, she is screaming. And your decision is to go to work and leave her. With doctors and nurses, yeah, I'm sure, okay, they are trained to deal with this stuff, but you are her partner. What she is mentally and physically going through is the same as someone, like, ripping her apart. I mean, imagine if you were in a crash where you were slowly being ripped apart by something, and your wife, after holding your hand for a bit and, ooh, ouchie, ooh, the hand's getting a bit tight to grip on, her response is to walk away because, hey, she needs to go pick up the kids from school. Like, come on, buddy. And again, the way you justify the fact that your wife is someone who is emotional and overreacting, well, that's what your mother-in-law says. It genuinely feels like you're justifying yourself just based on assumptions with gender norms in a relationship. It sounds like you haven't for a second even taken into account what your wife went through. And really, that alone is why you're an a-hole. If I'd been the client and found out he'd done that, I would have turned them down on principle. You're the a-hole. God, you may be the biggest a-hole of the week. Your wife, the woman you vowed to stand by for the rest of your life, was having what could likely be the most traumatic experience of her life, and instead of supporting her, you left her because you figured helping your dad was more important. The second you get married, your nuclear family becomes your wife and any children you have. They should become your first priority, and you've managed to abandon them all at a time when your wife needed you and missed the birth of your children. You'd be lucky if you ever get to see those kids. You need a reality check. It's unfortunate your wife doesn't want to divorce you. Hopefully, she changes her mind. You're the a-hole. There are no clients anywhere that would expect you to be at a presentation on the day of your wife's giving birth. What the frig? What's sad is that this comment is more likely to make OP understand he messed up big time than the comments about his wife needing him emotionally during labor. But it's true. If I worked for a company where the boss demanded his son leave his wife during labor to do anything work-related, I'd quit. And I'd spread the word about the heartlessness. And if I was a client, I'd take my business elsewhere. OP needs therapy to help resort his priorities. He likely believes that therapy is silly girl talk and won't go. So I hope some genuinely intelligent man with muscles tells him to man up and be there for his wife. Hey, you! So it looks like you've made it to the end of today's video. So, if you're looking at my face, that means you liked the video, so why not prove it and let us all know by liking the video? It really helps the channel out, and I'd really like to one day be making quality content over quantity content, so if you'd like to help me out on that, please sure to subscribe, and click the notification bell so you can always be updated on the latest of our videos. I have a lot of fun sharing these stories with you, letting you know my opinions on them, and reading yours as well. I do read the comments. I don't always comment, but I read the comments. So if you have any feedback, or if there's anything you'd like to talk about, be sure to do so down below. But with that also said, it's the end of the video, which means you're done with me now, so I'm heartbroken, but I will never forget you. I'll see you next time. Bye!